What is she wearing?
The moment Maria Santos stepped onto that red carpet, she knew she'd made a terrible mistake. Not because of the cameras. Not because of the whispers that started the second her cheap shoes touched the velvet walkway. But because standing at the top of those marble steps, looking down at her like she was a ghost he'd been searching for in every corner of the earth, was Dominic Ashford, the man she'd loved in secret, the man whose child she'd hidden for 5 years. The man whose mother had destroyed her life with 6 words, "You will never be good enough." And judging by the way his champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, sending crystal flying everywhere and making every head in that ballroom turn, he'd just seen her too. Maria's heart stopped. Around her, New York's richest and most powerful people froze mid-conversation. A woman in a gown that probably cost more than Maria's car gasped. Security guards started moving toward the commotion. But Dominic didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at Maria like she'd risen from the dead. His best friend Marcus grabbed his shoulder. "Dom, man, what's wrong?" Dominic's lips moved. Maria couldn't hear him from across the room, but she could read his lips perfectly. It's her. That's when Maria did something she'd sworn she'd never do again. She ran, not out of the building, she couldn't. The red carpet behind her was packed with arriving guests, photographers, reporters shouting questions at celebrities. She ran deeper into the ballroom, weaving between designer gowns and custom tuxedos, trying to find somewhere, anywhere to disappear. Because if Dominic caught her, if he asked her the questions she could see burning in his eyes, her carefully constructed life would fall apart. And her son, their son, would be caught in the middle of a war between 2 worlds that were never meant to touch. But here's the thing about running from your past, it always catches up. See, 5 years ago, Maria Santos made 3 promises to herself. 1. Never step foot in Dominic Ashford's world again. 2. Never let his family know about the baby growing inside her. 3. Never ever let him see how much leaving him broke her. Tonight she was about to break all 3. And the crazy part, she walked into this trap willingly. Got dressed up, took a taxi to the one place she swore she'd never return to, all because her boss needed a +1 to some fancy gala. What Maria didn't know was that Dominic Ashford wasn't just attending this event. He was hosting it, you see. Some love stories start with a meet cute. Others start with destiny. This one started in a kitchen where a struggling chef/pre-med student learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is make a rich man fall in love with you, especially when his mother would rather see you dead than see you with her son. Make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take you places. And trust me, when Maria finally stops running and Dominic corners her on that terrace overlooking Central Park, the secret she's been hiding will change everything. Let me take you back to where this all began, the Ashford estate. 5 years ago, a Tuesday afternoon that would change 2 lives forever. 5 years earlier, Maria stood in the massive kitchen of the Ashford estate, staring at the ingredients laid out before her like they were a final exam. And in a way, they were. This was her 3rd day on the job, and she still couldn't believe she was here. The kitchen alone was bigger than the entire apartment she shared with her grandmother in Harlem. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, a wine fridge that was extremely expensive just from the look of it. "Remember, Mija," her grandmother Alina had told her that morning, gripping her hands tight. "This job pays 3 times what we were making before. We can't mess this up." Maria knew what her grandmother wasn't saying. This job is our lifeline. Your medical school dreams depend on it. Don't fall, don't fail, don't even breathe wrong. The pressure was suffocating, but not as suffocating as the reason she'd been hired in the first place. Dominic Ashford, heir to a billion-dollar real estate and tech empire, had severe food allergies, the kind that sent him to the hospital if he ate the wrong thing. His mother, Victoria Ashford, had gone through 17 chefs in 2 years trying to find someone who could cook meals he could actually eat. 17 professionally trained chefs with credentials from culinary schools Maria could only dream of attending. And somehow Maria, a 23-year-old pre-med student who'd learned to cook from her Dominican grandmother, was chef number 18. The irony wasn't lost on her. "You can do this," Maria whispered to herself, pulling her braids into a ponytail. "It's just food. You've been cooking since you were 8 years old. She started with the basics, checked every ingredient twice for potential allergens, used separate cutting boards for everything, sanitized every surface until it gleamed. Her grandmother had taught her that cooking wasn't just about following recipes. It was about love, about care, about putting a piece of your soul into every dish. So that's what Maria did. She made herb-crusted salmon with roasted asparagus and garlic mashed potatoes. Simple, clean, safe. When she plated it, the dish looked like art. "Please let this work," she whispered, carrying the tray toward the dining room. That's when she saw him for the first time. Dominic Ashford sat at the head of a table that could seat 20 people, but he was alone. He wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, nothing like the designer suits Maria had seen in the society pages. His hair was cut into a sharp fade with neat all-back braids that looked fresh from the barber. He was younger than she'd expected, early 20s maybe, and handsome in a way that made Maria's stomach flip. "Stop it," she told herself. "He's your boss, sort of. Don't be stupid." "Mr. Ashford," Maria said softly, setting the plate down. "Dinner is served." Dominic looked up from his phone, his eyes dark brown, intense, met hers for just a second before dropping to the food. "Thank you," he said quietly. Maria nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Wait," she turned back. "Yes, sir." "What's your name?" Maria Santos." Dominic nodded slowly. "You're new?" "Yes, sir. Third day." "My mother hired you." "Yes, sir." He picked up his fork, studying the salmon like it might attack him. Maria understood. After being sent to the hospital by food 17 times, trust didn't come easy. "I checked everything 3 times, Maria said before she could stop herself. "No shellfish, no nuts, no soy. I used fresh herbs from the garden, organic vegetables, wild-caught salmon. Everything was prepared on sanitized surfaces with clean utensils." Dominic looked at her again. This time something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. "You sound like a doctor," he said. Maria felt her cheeks warm. "I'm studying to be one, pre-med at City College. I work here to pay tuition." "Pre-med," Dominic repeated. "Why cooking then?" "My grandmother taught me. She's a chef too." "Well, she was. Arthritis made it hard for her to work full-time, so when your mother offered us both positions, me as head chef, her as my assistant, we couldn't say no." Dominic cut into the salmon, took a small bite. Maria held her breath. He chewed slowly, swallowed, waited. Seconds passed like hours. Then Dominic took another bite, and another. "This is incredible," he said finally, and Maria could hear the shock in his voice. "I can actually taste it. Usually everything tastes like cardboard because I'm too worried about dying to enjoy it." Relief flooded through Maria so fast she felt lightheaded. "Thank you, Mr. Ashford." "Dominic," he corrected. "Just Dominic." "Can't call you that," Maria said quickly. "Your mother would fire me." Something dark flickered across Dominic's face. "My mother isn't here." Before Maria could respond, her grandmother appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands nervously. "Mija, is everything okay?" Ina asked in Spanish. "Everything's perfect, abuela," Maria replied in English, smiling. "Mr. Ashford likes the food." Alina's whole face lit up. She looked at Dominic and pressed her hands together like she was praying. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Dominic smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "No, thank you, both of you. This is the first meal I've enjoyed in I don't even remember how long." That smile did something dangerous to Maria's heart. "Don't," she warned herself. "Don't you dare," but it was already too late. Over the next 3 months, Maria fell into a rhythm at the Ashford estate. She'd arrive at 6 in the morning, prep breakfast, serve Dominic at 7:30. Then she'd clean up, prep lunch, study in the kitchen while things cooked. Serve lunch at 1. Study more, prep dinner, serve at 7, clean up. Go home by 9. Her grandmother helped when her hands allowed it, but mostly Alina watched Maria work with a worried expression. Maria pretended not to notice. "Mija," Alina said one afternoon while Maria chopped vegetables, "be careful." "I'm always careful, abuela. You know I triple-check everything for his allergies." "That's not what I mean." Maria looked up. Her grandmother's eyes were serious. "See how he looks at you," Alina continued quietly, "and how you look at him." "I don't look at him any kind of way," Maria protested, but her cheeks burned. "You laugh at his jokes. You ask him about his day. You plate his food like you're making art just for him." "I plate everyone's food like that, Mija." Alina gripped Maria's hand. "We need this job. Your medical school depends on it. We can't afford complications." Maria wanted to argue, wanted to say her grandmother was seeing things that weren't there, but she couldn't, because Elena was right. Somewhere between breakfast conversations and dinner discussions, between Dominic asking about her anatomy classes and Maria asking about his business meetings, something had shifted. They'd become friends. Or maybe something more dangerous than friends. It had started small. Dominic began staying in the kitchen while Maria cooked, claiming he liked watching the process. Then he started asking questions about her life, her dreams, her family. Maria learned that Dominic hated business meetings, loved old jazz music, and read science fiction novels when he couldn't sleep. Dominic learned that Maria studied until 2 in the morning most nights, missed her parents who died when she was 8, and dreamed of opening a free clinic in Harlem someday. "Why medicine?" Dominic asked one evening, watching Maria season chicken. "My mother was a nurse," Maria said softly. "She died in a car accident with my father when I was little. But I remember how she used to help people in our neighborhood, free checkups, advice, bringing medicine to people who couldn't afford it." Maria smiled at the memory. She said healing people was the closest thing to being God's hands on earth. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "She sounds amazing." "Was. You're going to be an incredible doctor, Maria." The way he said her name, soft, certain, like it was something precious, made her heart stutter. "Do you know?" Maria asked, trying to keep her voice light. "Because you already are," Dominic said simply. "You heal me every day." Maria's hands stilled over the cutting board. "I don't just mean the food," Dominic continued. "I mean, before you came, I was isolated, afraid to eat, afraid to live. My mother kept me in this house like I was made of glass. But you," he paused, "you made me feel human again." Maria didn't know what to say, didn't trust herself to speak. "Look forward to meals now," Dominic said quietly. "Not because of the food, because I get to talk to you." Kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. "Mr. Ashford." "Dominic." "I know," he stood up abruptly. "I know you can't. I know I shouldn't. I know this is complicated and inappropriate and my mother would lose her mind." He ran a hand over his braids, something Maria had learned he did when he was frustrated. "But I can't stop thinking about you, Maria. And I don't know what to do about it." Maria's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. This was the moment. The moment she should step back, should remember her place, should protect her grandmother and herself and the job that was funding her entire future. But instead she heard herself say, "I think about you too." The words hung between them like lightning before thunder. Dominic crossed the kitchen in 3 steps. Stopped right in front of her, close enough that Maria could smell his cologne, something expensive and clean. "This is a bad idea," he whispered. "Worst," Maria agreed. "My mother will destroy you." "I know. Should stop right now. Before this goes any further." "Should." Neither of them moved. Dominic reached out slowly, giving Maria every chance to pull away. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing across her skin so gently she almost cried. "Tell me to leave," he said. Maria closed her eyes. "I can't." "Maria, I can't, Dominic. I've tried. God knows I've tried to stop feeling this way, but I can't." When she opened her eyes, Dominic was looking at her like she was the only real thing in his entire manufactured world. "Then we're both in trouble," he said, and then he kissed her. It was soft, careful, like he was afraid she might break. But when Maria kissed him back, something inside both of them shattered. All the walls they'd built, all the reasons they shouldn't, all the consequences waiting for them. None of it mattered in that moment. What mattered was the way Dominic held her face like she was precious. The way Maria gripped his shirt like he was an anchor. The way they both knew this kiss was changing everything. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers. "We have to be careful," he said. "I know. My mother can't find out. Not yet. Not until I figure out how to." "I know, Dominic, I know." But even as Maria said it, even as they both promised to be discreet, to be smart, to protect what they were building, they both knew they were living on borrowed time, because Victoria Ashford didn't miss anything, and she definitely didn't share. For 6 weeks, Maria and Dominic existed in a secret world, stolen kisses in the kitchen when no one was watching, quiet conversations in the garden after dinner, text messages late at night when Maria should have been studying and Dominic should have been sleeping. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was everything Maria had never let herself want. Dominic made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced. He didn't just ask about her day, he remembered details. What exam she was worried about, which professor gave her trouble, whether her grandmother's hands were hurting. He bought her medical textbooks he claimed he'd found on sale, but Maria knew cost hundreds of dollars each. He sent dinner to her apartment on nights she couldn't make it to the estate, always with a note. Eat something. You can't save lives if you don't take care of yourself. He looked at her like she was the sun and he'd been living in darkness. And Maria, God help her, fell completely in love with him. She knew it was stupid. Knew it couldn't last. Knew that people like her didn't end up with people like him in real life. But when Dominic held her hand under the table during dinner, when he whispered that she was brilliant and beautiful and everything he'd never known he needed, Maria let herself believe in fairy tales. Her grandmother saw it happening and said nothing, but her worried look spoke volumes. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything fell apart. Maria was in the kitchen humming while she prepared Dominic's favorite salmon dish. She just finished plating when she heard footsteps, heavy, precise, expensive heels clicking on marble. Victoria Ashford entered the kitchen like a storm. She was in her late 50s, beautiful in a cold, untouchable way. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect bun. Her cream suit was tailored to perfection. Pearls at her neck, always pearls. But it was her eyes that made Maria's blood freeze. Those eyes missed nothing, saw everything. And right now they were looking at Maria like she was an insect that needed to be crushed. Ashford, Maria said, fighting to keep her voice steady. I didn't know you were home. Would you like me to prepare something for you? Where is my son? Victoria asked, ignoring the question. I believe he's in his office. He spends an unusual amount of time in this kitchen lately. Statement hung in the air like an accusation. Maria's heart started racing. I wouldn't know, ma'am. I'm just preparing his meals. Just preparing his meals, Victoria repeated slowly. She walked closer, circling Maria like a predator. Tell me, Miss Santos, do you think I'm stupid? No, ma'am, of course not. Then don't insult my intelligence by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. Victoria stopped directly in front of Maria. Up close, her perfume was overwhelming, expensive and suffocating. Seen how he looks at you, Victoria said quietly. How you look at him. Ashford, I swear we haven't. Don't. Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. Don't lie to me. I saw you in the garden last week. Through my window, I saw him kiss you. Maria's world tilted. Please, Maria whispered. Please, I need this job. You should have thought about that before you decided to seduce my son. I didn't seduce anyone. We care about each other. Victoria laughed. It was the coldest sound Maria had ever heard. Care about each other. Is that what you're calling it? Victoria stepped even closer. Let me tell you something, Miss Santos. My son is heir to a billion-dollar empire. He will marry someone of equal standing, someone who understands our world, someone who can give him the life he deserves. Never asked him for anything. You exist. That's enough. Victoria's eyes were ice. You are a chef. A girl from Harlem with no family name, no connections, no future beyond what we give you. You are asterisk nothing asterisk. The word hit like a slap. Worked very hard to build this family's legacy, Victoria continued. I won't watch it crumble because my son has confused gratitude with love. It's not gratitude, Maria said, finding her voice. He loves me, I love him. Victoria said it like a curse. Love is a luxury for people who can afford it. You can't. And my son won't sacrifice his future for a fantasy. She pulled an envelope from her purse and set it on the counter. There's 6 months' salary in there. More than generous. Take it, pack your things. You and your grandmother will be gone by tonight. Maria stared at the envelope like it was poison. What if I say no? Victoria smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Then I'll make sure you never work in the city again. I'll call every hospital, every medical school, every place you've ever applied. By tomorrow, your dreams of becoming a doctor will be dead. The threat was delivered so calmly, so casually, it took Maria a moment to process it. You can't do that, Maria whispered. I can, I have. Ask the last girl who tried to get her hooks into my son. She's working at a gas station in New Jersey now. Maria felt sick. So here's what's going to happen, Victoria said. You're going to take that money. You're going to leave. You're going to block my son's number and disappear. If you truly care about him, you'll let him move on with his life. He know you're doing this? He will. And he'll be upset. He might even sulk for a few months. But eventually, he'll understand I did what was necessary. Victoria picked up the envelope and pressed it into Maria's hands. Men like my son don't marry girls like you, Miss Santos. The sooner you accept that, the less painful this will be." Kitchen door swung open. Grandmother Alina walked in, took one look at Victoria's face and Maria's tears, and understood immediately. "No," Alina said firmly. "You can't do this." "I just did," Victoria said. "You have until 8 o'clock tonight. After that, I'm calling security." She walked out, heels clicking, leaving Maria and her grandmother standing in the ruins of their lives. Alina pulled Maria into her arms as she collapsed, sobbing. "It's okay, Mija. We'll be okay." But they both knew that was a lie. If you're feeling Maria's pain right now, if you're angry at Victoria, if you want to see what happens when Dominic finds out, hit that like button and drop a comment. Tell me, what would you do in Maria's position? Take the money and run, or fight for love, because what happens next will break your heart. And I need you here for it. Maria and her grandmother packed in silence. 3 months of their lives fit into 4 suitcases and a trash bag. Alina kept crying quietly, wiping her eyes with her apron. Maria couldn't cry anymore. She'd run out of tears in the kitchen. "Maybe you should call him," Alina said. "Tell him what his mother did. Let him fight for you." "Then what, abuela?" Maria's voice was hollow. "He fights with his mother. She cuts him off. He loses everything because of me. If he loves you, that's exactly why I can't." Maria zipped up a suitcase violently. "She was right about one thing. I'd ruin his life." "Mija, don't say that. It's true. Look at us, abuela. Look at this situation. His mother threatened to destroy my medical career with one phone call. What kind of power is that? What kind of world does he live in?" Maria sat on the bed, defeated. "I could never be part of that, and he could never be part of mine." Her phone buzzed. Again, Dominic had called 17 times, sent 32 texts. "Where are you, Maria? Please answer what happened. My mother won't tell me anything. Please don't do this. I love you." That last text made Maria's chest ache so badly she couldn't breathe. "Have to block him," she whispered. "Maria, I have to, abuela. If I don't, I'll cave. I'll go back, and she'll destroy both of us." With shaking hands, Maria blocked Dominic's number. Then she deleted every text, every photo, every evidence that the last 3 months had ever happened. By 7:45, they were in a cab heading back to Harlem. Maria looked back at the Ashford estate one last time, watching it disappear into the distance. She didn't know it yet, but she was carrying more than just suitcases. She was carrying Dominic's child. And that secret would change everything. 3 weeks after Maria disappeared, she sat on the bathroom floor of their tiny Harlem apartment, staring at 2 pink lines, pregnant. The word echoed in her head like a death sentence. Her grandmother knocked softly on the door. "Mija, you've been in there for 20 minutes. Are you okay?" Maria couldn't answer, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She was 23 years old, broke, jobless, and pregnant by a man whose mother had promised to destroy her if she ever came near him again. "Maria." Alina's voice was more urgent now. "I'm coming in." Door opened. Alina took one look at the pregnancy test in Maria's hand and her face crumbled. "Oh, Mija," she whispered, dropping to the floor beside her granddaughter. "Oh no." That's when Maria finally broke. She sobbed like a child, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Alina wrapped her arms around her and held on tight. "What am I going to do, abuela?" Maria choked out. "What am I going to do? We'll figure it out," Alina said firmly, even though her own eyes were filled with tears. "We always do. Mother will take the baby. You know she will. She'll say I'm unfit. She'll say I trapped him. She won't get the chance," Alina interrupted. "Because we're not telling them." Maria pulled back, staring at her grandmother. "What? We don't tell the Ashfords about this baby?" Alina's jaw was set in that stubborn way Maria knew meant she'd already made up her mind. "We protect this child. We raise him or her away from that toxic family. We do it ourselves. Abuela, we can barely afford rent. Then we'll work harder. We'll find a way, but we will not hand your baby over to that woman." Alina gripped Maria's hands. "Do you understand me? We don't give Victoria Ashford another person to control." Maria looked down at her still flat stomach, a baby. Dominic's baby. Part of her wanted to call him right then. To tell him. To let him decide what to do. But then she remembered Victoria's cold eyes, her threats. The envelope of money meant to make Maria disappear. "Okay," Maria whispered. "Okay, we don't tell them." Alina kissed her forehead. "We've survived worse, Mija. We'll survive this too." But surviving and living were 2 very different things, and for the next 5 years Maria would learn exactly what that difference meant. Meanwhile, across town, Dominic Ashford was falling apart. He sat in his penthouse apartment, the one his mother had insisted he move into after Maria left, staring at his phone. Message failed to send. He tried calling, texting, even drove to the address Maria had listed on her employment forms, only to find out she and her grandmother had moved with no forwarding address. It was like they'd vanished into thin air. "Dom, man, you gotta eat something," Marcus said, setting down a plate of food Dominic hadn't asked for. Dominic didn't even look at it. "I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 4 days. I said I'm not hungry." Marcus sat down heavily on the couch. "Your mom did this, didn't she?" Dominic's jaw clenched. "What makes you say that?" "Because I know your mother, and I know she'd rather see you miserable than with someone she didn't handpick." Marcus leaned forward. "What did she do?" "Fired them, threatened Maria's career, paid them off to disappear." Dominic's voice was flat, emotionless. He'd run out of anger days ago. Now there was just emptiness. "And I let it happen. How were you supposed to know? I should have protected her," Dominic exploded, finally looking at his best friend. "I should have stood up to my mother. I should have told Maria I didn't care about the money or the company or any of it, but I didn't. I was too slow, too comfortable, and now she's gone, so find her. I tried. I hired 3 different investigators. They all came back with nothing. It's like she doesn't want to be found." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Maybe she doesn't." Words hit Dominic like a punch. "What if she's protecting herself?" Marcus continued gently. "Your mom threatened her career, man. Maybe Maria disappeared because she's scared of what your family could do to her." Dominic dropped his head into his hands. "Then I've lost her forever." "Necessarily. New York's a big city, but it's not that big. If she's still here, you'll run into her eventually." Dominic wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe in fate and destiny, and all that romantic nonsense he used to make fun of. But sitting alone in his empty apartment, unable to eat because the only person who'd ever made food he could stomach was gone, belief felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. 5 years later, Maria stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to make herself look presentable for a gala she had no business attending. The simple navy dress she'd bought from a discount store last year was pressed and clean, but it still looked cheap compared to what she knew people would be wearing. "Mama, why are you putting on lipstick?" 5-year-old Elijah asked from the doorway, his Spider-Man action figure clutched in one hand. Maria smiled at her son through the mirror. He had her nose, her smile. But those eyes, those deep brown eyes that saw everything, those were all Dominic. "Because Mama has to go to a fancy party for work, baby." "I come?" "Not this time. But Abuela's going to make you arroz con pollo for dinner, your favorite." Elijah's face lit up. "With extra chicken, with extra everything," Alina said, appearing behind him. She looked at Maria with worried eyes. "Mija, are you sure about this?" Maria knew what her grandmother was really asking. "Are you sure you want to risk going to an event where you might see him? Asterisk, my boss specifically asked me to come. Said it would be good for my career." Maria turned away from the mirror. "It's at the Callaway Hotel. It's a huge gala. There'll be hundreds of people there. The chances of running into—" She couldn't even say his name in front of Elijah. "The chances are slim," Maria finished. Alina didn't look convinced. "And if you do see him, then I leave. Simple as that." But nothing about Dominic Ashford had ever been simple. Maria kissed Elijah's forehead. "Be good for Abuela, okay?" "Okay, Mama, you look pretty." "Thank you, baby." As Maria grabbed her small purse, the only one she owned that wasn't falling apart, Alina pulled her aside. "If things get bad, you call me immediately. I don't care if you're in the middle of dinner with the president. You call me and I'll come get you." "Be fine, Abuela." "Maria Elena Santos, promise me." Maria sighed. Her grandmother only used her full name when she was serious. "I promise." 20 minutes later, Maria was in a yellow taxi heading toward Manhattan, watching the neighborhood change from Harlem's familiar streets to the gleaming towers of Midtown. She'd worked so hard to build a life separate from the Ashfords. After Elijah was born, she'd taken night classes while working 3 jobs, waitressing, cleaning offices, doing medical transcription from home. It had taken her 3 extra years, but she'd finally finished her undergraduate degree. Got accepted into medical school. Was now in her 2nd year of residency at Mount Sinai. She was proud of what she'd accomplished, proud of the life she'd built for Elijah, But tonight, riding in this taxi toward a world she'd left behind, Maria felt like that scared 23-year-old again. "We're here, miss," the driver said. Maria looked up at the Callaway Hotel. It was everything she remembered about Dominic's world: excessive, beautiful, intimidating. "Okay?" the driver asked, noticing her hesitation. "Yeah," Maria lied. "Just give me a second." She paid the fare, tipped him with money she couldn't really afford to spare, and stepped out onto the red carpet. Immediately, she knew she'd made a mistake. Limousines stretched as far as she could see. Women in gowns that probably cost more than her monthly rent glided past like they owned the sidewalk. Men in designer tuxedos, the kind featured in GQ just last week, talked on phones and barely glanced her way. Maria felt every eye on her cheap dress, her discount store shoes, her natural hair styled simply because she couldn't afford a salon. "You don't belong here," a voice whispered in her head. "You never did." But Maria lifted her chin and walked forward anyway. Because if 5 years of single motherhood had taught her anything, it was that belonging wasn't about what you wore or how much money you had. It was about refusing to be invisible just because people wanted you to be. The grand ballroom of the Callaway Hotel was even more overwhelming than the red carpet. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars, ice sculptures, a champagne fountain, waiters in white gloves carrying trays of food Maria couldn't pronounce, and everywhere, wealth. It hung in the air like perfume, dripped from every conversation, sparkled in every piece of jewelry. Maria found a spot near a marble column and tried to blend in. "Girl, you look like you're at a funeral," a familiar voice said. Maria turned to see Jessica Chen, her coworker from Henderson & Co., walking toward her in a red dress that actually fit the occasion. "Jess, thank God. I thought I was going to have to stand here alone all night. Please, you know I wouldn't abandon you at this snooze fest." Jessica handed her a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Though I gotta say, some of these people are ridiculous. I just heard a woman complaining that her yacht only has 2 hot tubs. 2. Can you imagine the tragedy?" Despite her nerves, Maria laughed. "How do you even survive with only 2 hot tubs?" "Right, thoughts and prayers for her during this difficult time." Jessica took a sip of her champagne. "So boss man said this was good for our careers. What do you think he meant? That we'd catch a rich husband?" "I think he meant networking." "Boring. I like my interpretation better." A burst of laughter from across the room made both women turn. A group of socialites were clustered together, pointing at someone and whispering. Maria followed their gaze and saw a young woman in a dress similar to hers, simple, inexpensive, clearly out of place. "Is that polyester?" one of the socialites said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I think it is," another replied. "Who even let her in?" The young woman's face flushed with embarrassment. She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Maria's hands tightened around her champagne glass. She knew exactly how that felt. "Some people have no class," Jessica muttered. "And I'm not talking about the girl in the dress." Before Maria could respond, the lights dimmed slightly. Someone tapped a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," a woman in an expensive suit announced, "please welcome your host for this evening's gala, Mr. Dominic Ashford." Maria's heart stopped. No, this couldn't be happening. Her boss had said it was a charity gala for hospital funding. He'd never mentioned who was hosting. The crowd applauded as a figure walked onto the small stage at the front of the ballroom. And there he was, Dominic Ashford, older, more confident, wearing a navy suit that looked like it cost more than Maria's car. His all-back braids were fresh, his fade sharp. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO he'd become. But it was his eyes that made Maria's breath catch. Those same dark eyes that used to look at her like she was the only person in the world. "Thank you all for coming," Dominic said into the microphone. His voice was deeper than Maria remembered, stronger. "Tonight we're raising funds for Mount Sinai's new cardiac wing." Maria didn't hear the rest, because at that exact moment Dominic's eyes swept the crowd and found hers. Time stopped. The champagne glass slipped from Dominic's hand, shattering on the stage floor with a crash that echoed through the ballroom. Everyone gasped, turned to look, but Dominic didn't move, didn't blink. Just stared at Maria like he'd seen a ghost. Marcus appeared at his side, gripping his shoulder. "Dom, man, what's wrong?" Dominic's lips moved. Maria couldn't hear him from across the room, but she could read his lips perfectly. "It's her." Marcus followed Dominic's gaze. His eyes widened when he spotted Maria. "Oh man, Dom, don't." But Dominic was already moving. He stepped off the stage, ignoring the event coordinator trying to get his attention. Ignored the confused murmurs spreading through the crowd. He walked straight toward Maria like a man possessed. Jessica grabbed Maria's arm. Maria, why is the hot billionaire walking toward us like you're the only person in this room?" Maria couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Dominic was 20 feet away. 15, 10, run, her brain screamed. Run now before he reaches you. So Maria did the only thing she could think of. She turned and ran toward the exit. "Maria," Jessica called after her. "What the?" But Maria was already pushing through the crowd, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. She couldn't do this. Couldn't face him. Couldn't handle the questions she knew were coming. She burst through a side door and found herself on a terrace overlooking Central Park. The cold night air hit her like a slap. She gripped the railing, gasping for breath. "Stupid," she told herself. "You were so stupid to come here. You should have known." Maria. Voice behind her made every muscle in her body freeze. She didn't turn around. Couldn't. "Please don't run again," Dominic said quietly. "I've been looking for you for 5 years. Please just give me 5 minutes. Maria's hands trembled on the railing. "You shouldn't have looked. How could I not? You disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. Your mother made it very clear I wasn't welcome in your life." She heard him take a step closer. "My mother doesn't control my life anymore." "Doesn't she?" Maria finally turned around, and the sight of him up close nearly broke her. He was so familiar and so different at the same time. "You're here, aren't you, hosting a gala, running the family business, living the life she planned for you. That's not fair." "Fair," Maria laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? Your mother threatened to destroy my career if I didn't disappear. She paid me to leave you alone. And I was so scared, so broken, that I took the money and ran. So don't talk to me about fair, Dominic." His face went pale. "She paid you 6 months' salary, said it was generous." Maria wiped angry tears from her eyes. "I used it to pay for Elijah's delivery." Name slipped out before she could stop it. Dominic went very still. Elijah, Maria's heart hammered. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading for 5 years. "My son," she whispered. "How old is he?" "Dominic, how old is he?" Maria met his eyes. Saw the hope and fear and desperate need in them. 5, she said quietly. "He turned 5 last month." She watched the math click into place in Dominic's head. "No," he breathed. "No, you didn't, Maria. Tell me you didn't." "I did what I had to do to protect him." "From me?" Dominic's voice cracked. "You kept my son from me, from your mother, from your world, from everything that would have destroyed us. I had a right to know. And I had a right to keep my child safe," Maria shot back. "You didn't see her face, Dominic. You didn't hear the things she said. She called me nothing, nothing. What do you think she would have done if she found out I was pregnant with your baby?" Dominic opened his mouth, closed it, because he knew. They both knew. Victoria would have taken the baby, would have claimed Maria was unfit, would have used every resource at her disposal to separate mother and child. "You should have trusted me," Dominic said, but his voice was weak now. "You were 27 years old and still living in your mother's house," Maria said softly. "You couldn't even eat a meal without her permission. How were you supposed to fight her?" The words hung between them like broken glass. Dominic staggered back, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Have a son," he whispered. "I have a 5-year-old son and I've never met him." "He know about me?" Maria shook her head. "I told him his father wasn't in the picture." "Jesus, Maria." Dominic ran his hands over his braids, that same gesture she remembered from years ago. "I've missed everything, his first words, his first steps, 5 years of birthdays and Christmases," and his voice broke. Maria had prepared for anger, for accusations, for rage. She hadn't prepared for this, for Dominic's raw, devastating grief. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, but I didn't know what else to do. You could have called, could have emailed, could have found some way to tell me. I blocked your number the day we left." "Why?" "Because if I didn't, I would have called you." Maria's voice cracked. "Every single day, Dominic. Every time Elijah asked about his father. Every time I was scared or tired or alone. I wanted to call you so badly it hurt. But I knew if I did, your mother would find out. And she'd take him from me, so I stayed away." Dominic was crying now, actually crying, tears streaming down his face while his whole body shook. "I loved you," he said. "I loved you so much it destroyed me when you left. I couldn't eat for months, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Marcus had to force feed me just to keep me alive." Loved you too, Maria said. She stopped. Couldn't finish that sentence, but Dominic heard it anyway. You still love me, he said. It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. He crossed the terrace in 2 steps, grabbing her hands. Maria, I'm not that scared boy anymore. I fought my mother, took control of the company, built my own life. I'm not powerless anymore. Me meet him. Please, let me meet our son. Maria looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd run from 5 years ago. The love, the hope, the impossible dream of being together. But she also saw something new, strength, determination. A man who'd become someone worthy of fighting for his family. Okay, she whispered. Dominic's eyes widened. Okay, you can meet him, but slowly. We don't tell him who you are right away. We don't overwhelm him, and if at any point this becomes too much for Elijah, we stop. He comes first, always. Agreed, whatever you want. Dominic pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly Maria could barely breathe. I just want to know my son, and I want God, Maria, I want you back in my life. Maria let herself sink into his embrace for just a moment. He still smelled the same, still felt like home, but home was a luxury she'd learned to live without. One step at a time, she said, pulling back. First, you meet Elijah, then we figure out the rest. Deal. They stood there on the terrace, the city lights twinkling below them, both knowing their lives had just changed forever. Again, if you're not screaming right now, I don't believe you. Drop a comment if you think she should have told Dominic about Elijah sooner. But listen, we're not done yet. Because what happens when Dominic meets his son for the first time will absolutely wreck you emotionally. And when Victoria finds out she has a grandson, oh honey, you are not ready. The next Saturday afternoon, Dominic stood outside Maria's apartment building in Harlem, more nervous than he'd ever been in any business meeting. He'd worn jeans and a simple hoodie, Marcus's suggestion. You show up in a 3-piece suit, you'll scare the kid, his best friend had said. Look approachable. In his hands, Dominic held a Spider-Man action figure, the deluxe edition, the one that lit up and made sound effects. Maria had texted him that morning. Elijah is obsessed with Spider-Man. Just FYI, Dominic had immediately gone to 3 different toy stores to find the best one. Now, standing in front of her door, he wondered if it was too much, too little, if he should have brought something else. If the door opened and there he was, Elijah Santos, 5 years old, brown skin, curly hair, wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, and Dominic's heart stopped. This was his son, his child. 5 years of life he'd missed standing right in front of him. Hi, Elijah said, looking up at him with curious eyes. Are you my mom's friend? Dominic tried to speak. Nothing came out. He cleared his throat and tried again. Yeah, I'm Dominic, your mom and we used to work together. Cool, I'm Elijah, but everyone calls me Eli, Dominic repeated. The name felt precious in his mouth. That's a great name. My mom picked it. She said it means God is my Lord in Hebrew. Elijah tilted his head. Do you believe in God? The question caught Dominic off guard. Yeah, I do. Me too. Abuela says God watches over us even when things are hard. Dominic's throat tightened. Your abuela is a smart woman. The smartest, Elijah agreed. Then his eyes landed on the Spider-Man toy in Dominic's hand. They went huge. Is that for me? If you want it. I want it. It's the deluxe edition, the one that lights up. I saw it at the store, but Mom said it was too expensive. Elijah looked up at Dominic with pure joy. Took the toy carefully like it was made of glass and immediately started pressing buttons to make it light up. Maria appeared in the doorway, watching the interaction with tears in her eyes. What do we say, Eli? She prompted gently. Thank you, Elijah said again, then ran inside to show his great-grandmother. Maria stepped onto the landing, closing the door partially behind her. He has your eyes, Dominic said quietly. I know. Your smile. I know. Maria, he's perfect. I know. Maria wiped her eyes. Are you okay? I don't know, Dominic admitted. I'm meeting my son for the first time and pretending to be just your friend. It's a lot. I know it is, but we have to do this carefully for his sake. I understand. Dominic looked at the partially open door where they could hear Elijah's excited chatter. Can I spend the day with him, with both of you? I promise I won't say anything. I just want to get to know him. Maria studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. There's a playground 2 blocks away. We usually go on Saturday afternoons. I come? Yeah, Maria said softly. You can come. Minutes later, Dominic found himself at a public playground in Harlem, watching his son play on the jungle gym. It was surreal. This wasn't his world. There were no private tennis courts or Olympic-sized pools, just a regular playground with regular kids and regular parents. And it was the most beautiful thing Dominic had ever seen. "Push me higher," Elijah called from the swing. Dominic looked at Maria. She nodded, so Dominic walked over and pushed his son on the swing, listening to his laughter echo through the afternoon air. "Are you strong?" Elijah asked. "Pretty strong, yeah. Stronger than Spider-Man," Dominic laughed. "Nobody's stronger than Spider-Man." "That's what I said, but my friend Tyler says Hulk is stronger." "Do you think Hulk is stronger?" "That's a tough question. What do you think?" Elijah considered this seriously. "I think they're both strong in different ways. Spider-Man is smart strong, Hulk is just smash strong." "That's a really smart answer, Eli. I know, I'm smart like my mom. She's gonna be a doctor." Pride swelled in Dominic's chest for Maria, for this incredible child they'd created. "Your mom is very smart," Dominic agreed. "The smartest. She works a lot. Sometimes she's really tired and falls asleep reading me stories, but she always makes time for me. She says I'm her favorite person in the whole world." Dominic's eyes stung with tears he forced back. After the playground, they got ice cream from a street vendor. Elijah got chocolate, Maria got vanilla, Dominic got strawberry. "Strawberry is for old people," Elijah informed him seriously. "I'm not that old," Dominic protested. "Old are you?" 32. Elijah's eyes went wide. "That's so old. My mom is only 28. That's way younger." Maria laughed so hard she almost choked on her ice cream. They spent the rest of the afternoon just existing together, walking through the neighborhood, playing in the park, talking about everything and nothing. And for the first time in 5 years, Dominic felt whole. That night after Elijah had gone to bed, Dominic sat with Maria and Alina in their small living room. The apartment was tiny compared to what he was used to, but it was clean, warm, filled with photos and love and life. "Thank you," Dominic said, "for today, for letting me be part of his life." "Liked you," Maria said softly. "He asked if you were coming back." "What did you tell him?" "I said if he wanted you to, you would." "I want to," Dominic said immediately. "I want to be here for him, for you, for as long as you'll let me." Alina, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "What about your mother?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "What about her? Does she know about Elijah?" "No." "You going to tell her?" Dominic looked at Maria. "That's not my decision to make." "She'll find out eventually," Maria said. "New York is too small. Someone will see us together." "We'll talk." "Then let them talk," Dominic said firmly. "I'm done hiding who I love and who I want in my life." "She'll try to take him," Alina warned. "She can try. She won't succeed." Dominic's voice was steel. "I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. I have my own money, my own power, and I will burn every bridge I have before I let her hurt this family." The word family hung in the air. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Dominic, I mean it, Maria. You, Elijah, Alina, you're my family. The only one that matters, and I will protect you with everything I have." Alina stood up. "I'm going to bed. You two need to talk." After she left, Maria and Dominic sat in silence for a long moment. "I'm scared," Maria finally admitted. "Of what?" "Of believing this is real. Of letting Elijah get attached to you and then losing you again. Of your mother finding out and making good on her threats." Maria looked at him. "I've built a life, Dominic, a good life. Elijah is happy, safe. What if letting you in destroys that? And what if it makes it better?" Dominic moved closer. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I know I have to earn that, but give me a chance. Let me prove I'm not going anywhere. How? However you need me to. I'll take things at your pace. I'll respect your boundaries. I'll put Elijah first in every decision. Just don't shut me out, not again." Maria looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He meant every word. "'Kay," she whispered. "One day at a time." Dominic smiled, that same smile that had made her fall in love with him 5 years ago. "One day at a time," he agreed. Victoria Ashford sat in her Upper East Side office, reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ashford, your 3 o'clock is here." Victoria didn't look up from her papers. "Send them in." Door opened and Diane Morrison walked in, a woman Victoria had known since their daughters attended the same private school 20 years ago. Diane was old money, old gossip, and old enough to know better than to waste Victoria's time. "This better be important, Diane," Victoria said, signing a document. "I have a board meeting in an hour." "Oh, it's important." Diane sat down without being invited, her Chanel purse clicking against the chair. "I saw something interesting at the Patterson Charity Gala last weekend." I don't care about social gossip. Your son was there. Victoria's pen paused. Dominic attends many galas, but this time he brought company. Diane pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Or rather, he found company there. She turned the phone around. The photo showed Dominic on a terrace holding a woman's hands. The woman was in a simple navy dress, her natural hair pulled back, her face tilted up toward Dominic's. Even in the dim lighting, Victoria recognized her immediately, Maria Santos. Where did you get this? Victoria's voice was dangerously quiet. My niece was there, said Dominic, caused quite a scene. Dropped his champagne glass right on stage when he saw this woman. And followed her outside, and they talked for over an hour. Diane leaned forward. Who is she, Victoria? Because the way your son was looking at her, well, it certainly wasn't professional. Victoria's mind raced. 5 years. She'd paid that girl to disappear 5 years ago. Nobody important, Victoria said, her voice ice. Just an old employee. Well, you might want to have a conversation with your son, because according to my niece, half of Manhattan's elite saw them together, and you know how people talk. After Diane left, Victoria sat alone in her office, staring at the photo. Maria Santos had come back, and from the look on Dominic's face in that picture, she'd brought his heart with her. Victoria picked up her phone and dialed her son's number. He answered on the third ring. Mother, need to talk. Busy. About Maria Santos. Silence. My office. Tonight, 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Victoria hung up before he could argue. Then she made another call. To the private investigator she kept on retainer for situations exactly like this. Need you to find everything on a woman named Maria Santos. Where she lives, where she works, who she associates with. Everything. And I need it by tomorrow morning. If that girl thought she could waltz back into Dominic's life without consequences, she was about to learn a very painful lesson. Nobody took what belonged to Victoria Ashford, not even her own son's heart. Dominic arrived at his mother's office at exactly 7 o'clock, his jaw already clenched for battle. He'd known this conversation was coming. Had actually been surprised it took this long. Victoria sat behind her massive desk like a queen on a throne, her signature pearls gleaming under the office lights. Sit, she commanded. Rather stand. Dominic, you wanted to talk about Maria, so talk. Victoria's eyes narrowed. So you admit you've been seeing her again? I'm not a teenager, Mother. I don't need to admit anything. My personal life is my business. When it affects this family's reputation. What reputation? Dominic stepped closer. The one where you control everything and everyone around you, or the one where you destroy anyone who doesn't fit your perfect little image. I protected you. You drove away the woman I loved. Dominic's voice cracked. You threatened her career, paid her to disappear, and made her feel like she was nothing. So don't stand there and tell me you were protecting me. Victoria stood, her composure slipping. That girl was after your money. That girl worked 3 jobs to support her grandmother and pay for medical school. She never asked me for a single dollar, but you were so busy protecting your precious legacy that you couldn't see what was right in front of you. I see what you refuse to see, Victoria shot back. You're infatuated. You think love conquers all, but love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't maintain empires. Love is the only thing that matters. Dominic slammed his hand on the desk. And I'm done letting you poison it. If you continue this relationship, there will be consequences. Then let there be consequences. Dominic straightened his shoulders. I'm resigning from the company. Victoria's face went pale. What? You heard me. I'm stepping down as CEO. You can run the company yourself or find someone else. I don't care anymore. You're being ridiculous. No, Mother. For the first time in my life, I'm being honest. This company, this legacy, this life you built for me, I never wanted it. I stayed because I thought I owed you, but I'm done sacrificing my happiness for your approval. Victoria sank back into her chair, looking suddenly older. You'd throw everything away for her, in a heartbeat. Dominic headed toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mother, there's something else you should know. What? I have a son. His name is Elijah. He's 5 years old, and he's the most incredible kid I've ever met. Dominic's voice softened. Maria raised him alone for 5 years because she was terrified of what you'd do if you found out. She sacrificed everything to protect him from you. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. A grandson. I have a grandson. You have a grandson you'll never meet if you can't learn to treat his mother with respect. Dominic, wait. But he was already gone. leaving Victoria alone with the news that would either break her or remake her. Meanwhile, across town, Maria was dealing with her own crisis. She stood in the attending physician's lounge at Mount Sinai Hospital, staring at her phone in disbelief. "Jessica, girl, you're trending on some rich people gossip site. Check Tattletale NYC.com." Maria's hands shook as she pulled up the website. There, on the homepage, was a photo of her and Dominic on the terrace. The headline read, "Billionaire CEO Dominic Ashford spotted with mystery woman. New romance or old flame?" Below it, speculation, theories, comments from people who had nothing better to do than dissect her life. "She's pretty but clearly not his usual type. That dress looks like it's from Target. Lol, I heard she used to work for his family." Gold digger alert. Maria felt sick. Dr. Santos. She looked up to see Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, her attending physician, standing in the doorway. Dr. Okonkwo was a force of nature, brilliant, intimidating, and brutally honest. She'd taken Maria under her wing during residency, pushing her harder than any other resident because she saw potential. "Dr. Okonkwo, I saw the article." Dr. Okonkwo closed the door behind her. "Is it true you're involved with Dominic Ashford? It's complicated." "I imagine it is." Dr. Okonkwo sat down. "How long have you known him?" "We met 5 years ago. I used to cook for his family. We got close. His mother didn't approve. She fired me." Maria hesitated. "And I found out I was pregnant a few weeks later." Dr. Okonkwo's eyebrows rose. "The child is his." "Yes, Elijah, he's 5. Mr. Ashford. He knows now. He just found out a few weeks ago. At that gala, he'd been looking for me for 5 years." Dr. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I know how it looks. I know people will think I'm using him for money or status or..." "Maria." Dr. Okonkwo's voice was firm. "I've worked with you for 2 years. I've watched you pull 36-hour shifts while raising a child alone. I've seen you study until your eyes bled. I've witnessed you care for patients with a compassion that can't be taught." She leaned forward. "I don't care who you're dating or where you came from. I care about whether you can do your job. Can you?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then the rest is noise. Ignore it." Dr. Okonkwo stood. "But I will say this, the medical field is hard enough without adding billionaire drama to it. So whatever you decide to do with your personal life, make sure it doesn't compromise your career. You've worked too hard to let anyone derail you now." "I won't. I promise." After Dr. Okonkwo left, Maria sat alone trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. "Dominic, I told my mother about Elijah." Maria's heart stopped. "Maria, what?" "Dominic, we talked about this." "Dominic, she found out about us anyway. Someone took photos at the gala. I wasn't going to lie about our son." "Maria, what did she say?" "Dominic, she was shocked, angry, but I made it clear. She treats you with respect or she doesn't get to be part of our lives." "Maria, our lives." "Dominic, you, me, and Elijah. We're a family, Maria. Even if you're not ready to admit it yet." Maria stared at the text, her emotions warring between hope and terror. Before she could respond, her pager went off. Emergency surgery or 3 cardiac arrest. She shoved her phone in her pocket and ran. Personal drama would have to wait. Right now, someone needed her to save their life. 3 weeks passed. Dominic became a fixture in Maria and Elijah's life. He showed up every Saturday for park visits, started coming to Elijah's soccer practices, even helped with homework on Wednesday evenings. Elijah adored him. "Dominic's coming today, right, Mama?" Elijah asked every single Saturday morning without fail. "Yes, baby, he's coming." "Good, because I made him a drawing and I want to show him." Maria watched her son's face light up every time Dominic arrived, and her heart ached with a mixture of joy and fear. Joy because Elijah deserved a father, fear because she was falling in love with Dominic all over again. And this time the stakes were so much higher. Alina noticed, of course. "You look at him the same way you did 5 years ago," her grandmother said one evening after Dominic had left. "I know. You going to do something about it?" "Like what, abuela?" "Ask him to be my boyfriend." "We're not teenagers. We have a child together. It's complicated." "Is always complicated, Mija. The question is whether it's worth fighting for." Before Maria could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello, is this Dr. Maria Santos?" A professional female voice. "Yes, this is she." "This is Mount Sinai's surgical coordinator. We have an emergency cardiac case coming in." The patient specifically requested you. Maria frowned. Who's the patient? There was a pause. Victoria Ashford. World tilted. Sorry, what? Mrs. Victoria Ashford. She was brought in an hour ago with severe chest pains. She's been diagnosed with a critical aortic dissection. She needs immediate surgery. The coordinator's voice was calm, clinical. She's requesting you as her surgeon. That's impossible. She hates me. Nevertheless, she's been very clear, Dr. Santos, or she refuses treatment. Maria's mind raced. This had to be some kind of trap. Some twisted game Victoria was playing. I need to speak with Dr. Okonkwo. Doctor. Okonkwo is out of the country at a conference. You're the senior resident on call, and Mrs. Ashford is running out of time. Maria closed her eyes. Of all the scenarios she'd imagined for her next encounter with Victoria Ashford, performing life-saving surgery on her was not one of them. Be there in 20 minutes, Maria said. She hung up and looked at her grandmother. Have to go to the hospital. Mija, it's almost midnight. Victoria Ashford is there. She needs emergency surgery and she asked for me. Alina's face went pale. That woman tried to destroy you, I know, but I'm a doctor and she's dying. Maria grabbed her keys. Can you stay with Elijah? Of course. But Maria, be careful. That woman is dangerous even on her deathbed. Maria kissed her grandmother's cheek and headed out into the night, praying she was making the right choice. Mount Sinai's cardiac wing was controlled chaos when Maria arrived. Nurses prepping operating rooms. Residents running labs. The steady beep of monitors tracking lives hanging in the balance. Maria found Victoria in pre-op room 3. The woman who'd once commanded boardrooms and crushed opponents with a single look now lay in a hospital bed, pale and frightened. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither spoke. You came, Victoria finally said, her voice weaker than Maria had ever heard it. You asked for me. Maria pulled up the chart, keeping her voice professional. Why? Because you're the best. Victoria managed a bitter smile. I've kept tabs on you over the years, top of your class in medical school, exceptional resident reviews. Dr. Okonkwo says you have the steadiest hands she's ever seen. You've been watching me. I watch everyone who matters. Maria set down the chart. Mrs. Ashford, I need to know, is this real? Are you actually dying, or is this some elaborate scheme to? I'm dying. Victoria's voice cracked. The aortic dissection is severe. If you don't operate in the next 2 hours, I'll be dead by morning. Maria studied her face and saw the truth there, real fear, real desperation. Then we need to prep you for surgery immediately. Victoria grabbed Maria's hand. The gesture was so unexpected that Maria almost pulled away. I need to say something first, in case I don't wake up. Ashford, let me speak. Victoria's grip tightened. I was cruel to you. 5 years ago I said terrible things. I threatened you. I tried to make you believe you were worthless. I remember. I was wrong. Tears slipped down Victoria's face. I was so wrong. You weren't after Dominic's money. You weren't trying to trap him. You were just a young woman who loved my son, and I destroyed that because I was terrified. Maria's throat tightened. Terrified of what? Of losing control. Of Dominic choosing someone I didn't pick. Of admitting that maybe, just maybe, he knew better than I did about what would make him happy. Victoria wiped her eyes with shaking hands. I built this empire after my husband died, raised Dominic alone, sacrificed everything to give him the life I thought he deserved. And when you came along, when I saw how he looked at you, I saw everything I'd built crumbling. So you got rid of me. And in doing so, I made my son miserable for 5 years. I cost him time with his child. I cost him. Victoria's voice broke completely. I cost him you, and I will regret that until the day I die, which might be today. Maria didn't know what to say. This broken, vulnerable woman bore no resemblance to the Ice Queen who'd fired her 5 years ago. Have a grandson I've never met, Victoria continued. Dominic showed me pictures. Elijah. He looks just like Dominic did at that age. She looked at Maria with desperate eyes. If I survive this surgery, would you let me meet him? I'm not asking to be his grandmother. I haven't earned that, but maybe just to see him once, to tell him I'm sorry for all the time I stole from his father. Maria pulled her hand away gently. Ashford, right now you need to focus on surviving. We can discuss everything else after. You didn't answer my question, because I don't have an answer yet. Maria's voice was firm but not unkind. You hurt me. You threatened my career and my family. You made me feel like I was nothing. I've spent 5 years rebuilding myself from what you destroyed. so forgive me if I can't immediately say yes to letting you into my son's life." Victoria nodded slowly. "That's fair." But Maria continued, "I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you survive this surgery, not because I owe you anything, not because I've forgiven you, but because I'm a doctor, and saving lives is what I do. Even when those lives belong to people who tried to ruin mine." Fresh tears streamed down Victoria's face. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This surgery has a 30% mortality rate. You might not make it. Then at least I'll die knowing I apologized." Victoria closed her eyes. "That's more than I deserve." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Santos, or is ready," Maria nodded. Looked down at Victoria one last time. "See you on the other side, Mrs. Ashford." Victoria's eyes opened. "He loves you, you know, my son. He never stopped." Maria's heart clenched. "I know. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let pride or fear rob you of love." Before Maria could respond, Victoria was being wheeled toward the operating room. In the surgical waiting room, Dominic paced like a caged animal. Marcus sat in a plastic chair, watching his best friend slowly lose his mind. "Man, you gotta sit down. You're making me dizzy." "I can't. My mother is in surgery. The woman I love is operating on her. This is literally my worst nightmare. Maria's an incredible surgeon. I know that. But what if something goes wrong? What if my mother dies and Maria blames herself? What if—" "Dominic." He turned. Maria stood in the doorway, still in her scrubs, a surgical mask hanging around her neck. Dominic couldn't read her expression. "Is she—" "The surgery was successful," Maria said. "The aortic dissection was worse than we initially thought, but we were able to repair it. She's in recovery now. The next 24 hours are critical, but if she remains stable, she should make a full recovery." Relief that flooded through Dominic nearly knocked him over. "Thank you," he breathed. "Thank you so much. I was just doing my job." "Maria," she apologized. Maria interrupted. "Before the surgery. She said she was wrong about me, about us." Dominic stepped closer. "Did you believe her?" "I don't know yet. People say a lot of things when they think they're dying." Maria's voice wavered. "But I think maybe she meant it. She asked if she could meet Elijah." "What did you say?" "I said we'd discuss it after she recovered." Maria finally looked directly at him. "Dominic, I've spent 5 years hating your mother, 5 years being angry at what she took from us, and tonight I held her life in my hands. I could have let her die, could have made one small mistake that no one would have questioned. You didn't. Because that's not who I am. That's not who I want Elijah to see when he looks at me." Tears filled Maria's eyes. "But it was hard, standing there, saving the woman who tried to destroy me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." Dominic pulled her into his arms. Maria collapsed against him, the adrenaline and emotion of the last few hours finally breaking through her professional composure. "Got you," Dominic whispered into her hair. "I've got you." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in a hospital waiting room while Marcus quietly slipped away to give them privacy. "I'm scared," Maria finally admitted. "Of what? Of believing this is real. Of trusting that your mother has actually changed. Of letting myself love you again and having it all fall apart." Dominic pulled back just enough to see her face. "Then don't trust my mother. Trust me. Trust what we have. Trust that I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving I'm not going anywhere." "Dominic, I love you, Maria. I loved you 5 years ago. I loved you every single day you were gone, and I love you now. Nothing my mother says or does will change that. What if she goes back to who she was? What if this was just fear talking, and once she's better, then we deal with it together, as a family?" Dominic cupped her face. "You're not alone anymore. You don't have to protect Elijah and yourself all by yourself. I'm here. I'm not leaving. And I will stand between you and anyone who tries to hurt you, including my own mother." Maria searched his eyes and saw only truth. "Love you too," she whispered. "I never stopped." Dominic kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of 5 years of longing. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "So what now?" Maria asked. "Now we wait for my mother to wake up. And then we figure out what family looks like for all of us. Think she'll really change? I don't know. But I know you gave her a second chance when you didn't have to. That's more grace than most people would show." Maria leaned her head against his chest. "Your mom was right about one thing." "What's that?" "I do have steady hands." She held up her trembling fingers. "Even if they don't feel very steady right now." Dominic laughed and kissed her fingers. "Steadiest hands I've ever seen." Victoria woke up 18 hours later. The first thing she saw was Dominic asleep in a chair beside her bed. The second thing she saw was Maria reviewing her chart. "Awake," Maria said professionally. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a truck." Victoria's voice was hoarse. "But alive, thanks to you. Thanks to a whole surgical team. I just let it downplay what you did." Victoria's eyes were clear, lucid. "I meant what I said before the surgery, every word. We'll see." Maria made a note on the chart. "Your vitals are stable. If you continue recovering at this rate, you'll be out of ICU by tomorrow. Then you follow doctor's orders, rest and rebuild your strength." "I meant with Elijah." Maria set down the chart. "Mrs. Ashford." "Victoria, please, I think we're past formalities." "Victoria," Maria corrected. "Your son and I are still figuring out what our relationship looks like. Adding you into that equation is complicated." "I understand." "But," Maria continued, "Dominic showed Elijah pictures of you, told him you were his grandmother. Elijah asked when he could meet you." Victoria's breath caught. "He did. He's 5. He doesn't understand complicated family dynamics. He just knows he has a grandmother he's never met." Maria's voice softened slightly. "So when you're recovered, when you're stronger, we'll arrange a meeting. But it happens on my terms, at my pace. The moment I think you're being manipulative or harmful, it stops." "Understood, understood." Victoria wiped tears from her eyes. "Thank you, Maria. Thank me, thank Elijah. He's the one who wants to meet you." Dominic stirred in his chair, blinking awake. When he saw his mother was conscious, relief flooded his face. "Mom, you're okay." "I'm alive, which is more than I deserved." Victoria looked between her son and Maria. "I have a lot to make up for." "Yes, you do," Dominic agreed. "But you have time now, thanks to Maria." "I know." Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. "I won't waste it." 6 weeks later, Victoria met her grandson for the first time. They'd chosen a neutral location, a small cafe in Harlem that Maria and Elijah frequented. Victoria arrived early, dressed simply in slacks and a sweater. No pearls, no designer labels, just a grandmother about to meet her grandchild. When Maria walked in with Elijah, Victoria stood up so fast she nearly knocked over her tea. "Hi," Elijah said, looking up at her with those Ashford eyes. "Are you my grandma?" Victoria couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "Elijah," he continued when she didn't answer. "I'm 5 3/4. My favorite color is red. I like Spider-Man, and my mom says you were sick but you're better now." "I'm better," Victoria managed. "Thanks to your mom. She's the best doctor ever," Elijah said proudly. "She saves people all the time." "I believe it." Maria watched the interaction carefully, ready to intervene if needed, but Victoria was gentle, patient. She listened to Elijah talk about school and soccer and his best friend Tyler. She looked at the drawing he'd brought her, a crayon portrait of Grandma Victoria. And when Elijah asked if she wanted to come to his soccer game next week, Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I would love that more than anything." After an hour, Maria said they needed to go. "I hug you," Elijah asked Victoria. "Please," Victoria whispered. Elijah wrapped his small arms around her and Victoria held her grandson for the first time, memorizing every detail. When they left, Victoria sat alone at the table, crying quietly into her tea. Dominic appeared beside her. "You okay, Mom?" "He's perfect, absolutely perfect." "Yeah, he is, thank you," Victoria said, "for giving me this chance, for not shutting me out of his life." "Thank Maria, she's the one who convinced me you deserved a second chance." Victoria looked at her son. "You're going to marry her, aren't you?" "If she'll have me." "She will. She loves you. Even I can see that." "Coming from you, that means something." Victoria smiled. "I'm learning slowly, but I'm learning." She paused. "I enrolled in therapy to work through my control issues and my fear." Dominic's eyebrows rose. "Really, really? If I want to be part of Elijah's life, part of your life, I need to change. Actually change, not just say I will." Victoria gripped his hand. "I've spent so long building walls and protecting legacies. I forgot the only legacy that really matters is love." "Mom, let me finish. I was wrong about Maria, wrong about what you needed, wrong about everything. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it right. For you, for her, for my grandson." Dominic squeezed her hand. "One day at a time." "Day at a time," Victoria agreed. 1 year later, the Ashford estate garden was decorated with white flowers and fairy lights. A small group of family and friends gathered on chairs facing a flower-covered arch. Grandmother Alina sat in the front row, wearing her best dress and crying happy tears. Victoria sat beside her, holding Elijah's hand as he bounced excitedly in his seat. "Is Mama really getting married?" Elijah whispered loudly. "Yes, sweetheart," Victoria whispered back. "To Dominic, to your father." Elijah grinned. "Cool." Marcus stood beside Dominic at the altar, grinning like an idiot. "You ready for this, man?" Marcus asked. "Been ready for 6 years," Dominic replied. Then the music started. Maria appeared at the top of the garden path, wearing a simple white dress that made her look like an angel. Jessica Chen walked beside her as maid of honor, carrying a bouquet and crying. But Dominic only had eyes for Maria. She'd saved his life in more ways than one, had given him a son, had taught him that love was worth fighting for, had shown him grace even when he didn't deserve it. As she reached the altar, Dominic took her hand. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "You clean up pretty nice yourself," Maria whispered back. The officiant began speaking, but neither of them really heard the words. They were too busy looking at each other, thinking about everything they'd overcome to get to this moment, the separation, the secrets, the pain, the healing, all of it had led here. "Do you, Dominic Ashford, take Maria Santos to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do. Absolutely. Without question." People laughed. "And do you, Maria Santos, take Dominic Ashford to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Maria looked at Dominic. This man who'd never stopped loving her, who'd fought for their family, who'd proven every single day that he was worthy of her trust. "I do," she said. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Dominic pulled Maria into his arms and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning for 6 years. The small crowd erupted in applause. Elijah jumped up and down, shouting, "That's my mama and my dad." When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. "Love you," Dominic said. "Love you too," Maria replied. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand toward a future they'd build together. No more secrets, no more separation, just family. At the reception, Victoria approached Maria quietly. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Maria nodded, and they stepped aside from the celebration. "I wanted to give you something," Victoria said, pulling a small velvet box from her purse. "These were my mother's and her mother's before that." She opened the box to reveal a stunning pair of pearl earrings. "Victoria, I can't. Please, let me do this." Victoria's eyes were sincere. "In our family, these are passed down to the women who prove themselves to be the heart of the family. You've done that 100 times over. You saved my life. You gave my son purpose. You gave me a grandson. You showed me what real strength looks like." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I will never be able to fully make up for what I did to you," Victoria continued. "But I will spend the rest of my life trying, starting with this. Welcome to the family, Maria, not because you married into it, but because you earned your place here long ago." Maria accepted the earrings with shaking hands. Then, surprising both of them, she pulled Victoria into a hug. "Thank you," Maria whispered. "For changing, for trying. For loving Elijah the way you do." "Thank you for letting me," Victoria replied. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "Your mascara is running," Maria pointed out. "So is yours," Victoria said with a watery laugh. They walked back to the party together, two women who'd been enemies, now family. Dominic watched them approach with wonder in his eyes. "What just happened?" he asked Maria. "Your mother gave me her family pearls." She did. Dominic pulled Maria close. "Are you happy?" Maria looked around at their small reception. At Elijah dancing with his grandmother, at her abuela laughing with Marcus, at Jessica taking 1,000,000 photos, at this life she'd built from nothing but determination and hope. "I'm happy," she said. "I'm really, truly happy." "Good, because you deserve it." "Do you?" They danced under the fairy lights, while their son ran circles around them and their family celebrated love's victory over pride and fear. 3 years later, Dr. Maria Santos Ashford stood outside a brand new building in Harlem. The sign above the door read, "Santos Free Clinic, providing healthcare to those who need it most." It was everything she dreamed of since she was 8 years old, watching her mother care for their neighbors. Dominic stood beside her, holding their 18-month-old daughter, Isabella. Elijah, now 8, bounced on his toes. "Can we go inside, Mama, please?" "In a minute, baby. I'm just taking it all in." Clinic had been funded by a combination of Dominic's investment, grants Maria had written, and a surprising donation from Victoria, who'd become an unexpected advocate for accessible health care. You did it, Mija, grandmother Alina said, tears streaming down her face. We did it, abuela, all of us together. Victoria appeared, carrying a bouquet of flowers. For the opening, she said simply. Maria hugged her mother-in-law, something that would have been unimaginable 5 years ago. Thank you. Everything. Thank you for letting me be part of this family. Inside, the clinic was state-of-the-art but warm, painted in cheerful colors. Filled with hope, Maria had hired a team of doctors and nurses who believed in the mission, healthcare as a human right, not a privilege. As she gave the tour, Dominic watched his wife with pride. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with, the one who'd never forgotten where she came from, who'd turned pain into purpose. She's incredible, Marcus said, appearing beside him. Yes, she is. You're a lucky man, Dom, don't I know it? That evening, after the clinic's opening celebration, the whole family gathered at the Ashford estate for dinner. It had become tradition, Sunday dinners where everyone came together. Victoria had even learned to cook a few dishes with Alina's patient teaching. As they sat around the table, 3 generations sharing food and laughter and love, Maria looked at the faces of her family, her children, her husband, her grandmother. Her mother-in-law who'd become an ally. This was what she'd fought for, not wealth, not status, family, love, the freedom to be herself. Elijah asked, "Can I say grace tonight?" "Of course, baby." Everyone joined hands around the table. "Dear God," Elijah began, "thank you for this food. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my baby sister, even though she's loud sometimes. Thank you for my dad and my grandmas and Uncle Marcus and Aunt Jessica who always brings me candy." Everyone laughed. "And thank you for my mama," Elijah continued, his voice serious now, "who works really hard and helps people and makes the best arroz con pollo in the world. Amen." "Amen," everyone echoed. Maria wiped tears from her eyes. Dominic squeezed her hand. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," she said. "Absolutely perfect." And she was, because sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes the people who hurt you can learn to love you. Sometimes broken things can be healed. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to keep fighting, to keep hopping, to keep loving, fairy tales do come true, just not in the way you expect. Lessons from this story. 1. Your worth is never defined by someone else's opinion of you. Maria could have believed Victoria's words that she was nothing. Instead, she proved her value through her actions, her education, and her character too. Real strength is protecting what you love, even when it's hard. Maria made impossible choices to protect Elijah. She worked 3 jobs, sacrificed sleep, and built a life from scratch, all motivated by love. 3. People can change, but they have to do the work. Victoria's transformation wasn't instant. It required therapy, humility, and consistent effort. Real change takes time. 4. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let the past poison your future. Maria forgave Victoria, but she didn't pretend the hurt never happened. She simply chose not to carry that weight anymore. 5. The best revenge is living well. Maria didn't waste energy trying to hurt Victoria back. She focused on building her dream life, and that success spoke louder than any revenge could. 6. Family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up. Grandmother Alina, Jessica, Marcus, and eventually even Victoria became Maria's family because they consistently showed love and support. 7. Love is worth fighting for, but you have to fight smart. Dominic learned that loving Maria meant more than feelings. It meant standing up to his mother, making sacrifices, and proving his commitment through action. 8. Grace is powerful. When Maria operated on Victoria, she demonstrated grace, giving life to someone who tried to destroy hers. That act changed everything. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional romance stories. Drop a comment telling me which moment made you cry, because I know you cried. Don't even try to deny it. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their past doesn't define their future, that broken things can be healed, that love, real love, is always worth the fight. Thank you for always watching and tuning in. You are deeply appreciated. Until next time, peace.